morning, you're watching Business World Live. I'm Danny Laurel.
And I'm Jess De Los Santos. Here are the biggest stories to kickstart this trading day, Tuesday. Remittance growth accelerates to a 3-month high in March. That's on the back of recovery prospects in the global economy.
Analysts say the seemingly slow pace of forming the economic team of presumptive President Bongbong Marcos is keeping investors anxious.
The local bourse climbs back above 6,500 after finally snapping a five-day losing streak.
And with just more than a month left in his 6-year term, President Duterte orders all government agencies to use digital means in collecting and disbursing payments. We begin our broadcast with remittances sustaining their growth in March.
Flex improved economic conditions in many countries abroad as pandemic restrictions continued to ease. Data from the Bangko Sentral showed that money sent home by overseas Filipinos rose by 3.2% in March to $2.59 billion. This is the biggest inflow recorded since January, while the growth was fastest in 3 months since the 3.3% rise logged in December 2021. Economists say prospects of global economic recovery have boosted job outlooks for overseas Filipinos. Now, prices of some basic goods have increased, and the Trade Department says it's now coordinating with Metro Manila's Wage Board to cushion the impact of price hikes to consumers. Gerard De La Peña with the details.
While doing her grocery for a small sari-sari store, Lani noticed that prices of some items have increased.
Malaking epekto kasi solo parent ako eh. Napakahirap mag-budget.
Prices of some basic goods have gone up after the DTI approved manufacturers' requests. Prices of certain brands of canned sardines, instant noodles, instant coffee, batteries, and laundry detergent went up by 2 to 5%. Prices of certain brands of processed milk went up by 2% to as much as 10%. Even the price of salt went to as much as over 10%. Prices of bread, bottled water, and condiments likewise went up.
Hindi na natin rin mapigilan because of the increase in the prices of raw materials. A lot of these materials are imported. Siyempre, yung cost of importation nila kasama na.
Castelo said that they have coordinated with the Wage Board to cushion the impact of price increases. The Labor Department recently announced that workers in Metro Manila will see their wages increase by 33 pesos a day. A wage hike is also due in Western Visayas. But for a household help like Sonia, the added pay does little to offset the rise in commodity prices.
Kulang pa rin.
Bakit po?
Kasi madadagdagan pa rin yung bilihin. Tapos pamasahe pati.
The DTI said consumers can still go for cheaper options since the price increases only apply to certain brands. They also assured the public that any petition for price increases will pass through the agency's scrutiny. For News 5, Gerard De La Peña, We Are One News.
The camp of presumptive President Bongbong Marcos says his administration will prioritize not just job creation, but also job preservation. On 1PH's Sa Totoo Lang, Vic Rodriguez said the Marcos administration will focus on implementing the government's Jobs program. He adds that Marcos Jr. will also continue the Duterte administration's Build, while also prioritizing digital infrastructure. Rodriguez stressed the importance of expanding and increasing the internet connectivity of Filipinos. Meanwhile, Marcos's spokesperson declined to comment for now on President Duterte's advice for the next administration.
In President Duterte's recent speech, bilin dun sa susunod na presidente, number 1, buwagin na yung party list system. Number 2, isulong agad yung constitutional amendments.
I would refrain from commenting because whatever I say might have an impact on the economy, the political stability, because I'm saying it perhaps on behalf of the incoming administration.
All right, markets finally closed in the green. That's after a 5-day slide on the back of bargain hunting. But does this recovery have legs, Dan?
Well, Jess, so far, so good. So you can see on my terminal here, everything is green for the second day. Hopefully, we will be closing at these levels yet again. A confluence of bargain hunting yesterday. Metro Manila still in alert level 1. And then also minimum wage was raised. So investors found a reason to bargain hunt. And this is according to Jonathan Ravelas of BDO, trading at attractive valuations na daw. And he also did, however, say it's too early to say that this is a reversal. Inflation is yet to peak, and of course, the new president is yet to define his economic plans and name the economic managers. And one important indicator here is foreign selling. Yesterday, it showed that foreigners continue to flee. Yesterday was the 6th consecutive day of foreign selling. Now, let's take a quick peek at our movers here. You could see that the property sector was the best performer of the open, and you could see that being brought up by Ayala Land, up by 2 1/10%. Still a few, however, so this is not every company in the index, at least, because we do have at least 9 still in the red this morning. Now, just here to chat with us, we have, of course, Alvin Limlingan of Regina Cap. Alvin, good morning.
Hi, Danny. Good morning.
Alvin, general sentiment on the local bourse. Of course, during that election week, you had so many offshore issues also happening, particularly the Fed also, having a more aggressive stance here. Right now, as things have settled down, jitters are quelled for the moment, both offshore and hopefully onshore. How are you seeing us perform?
I guess I'd have to preface that question with the time frame you have in mind. I think things will be uncertain for the next 2 years. And this is not due to the result of the election. I think the general macro economy is in bad shape. You have the war in Ukraine, of course, which is causing inflation in commodities. You have turmoil in China. The massive lockdowns have disrupted supply chains. So it's against this backdrop that a new administration will have to steer the ship of state, so to speak.
Okay, I wanted to ask as well what you see in terms of a Marcos presidency. So you did mention that despite there will always be these issues here, the backdrop of the war in Ukraine, the inflation issues, but is there going to be a feeling of continuity from investors because Marcos is, of course, starting to choose his economic team? Is this for whatever reason quelling the sentiment that we had of investor anxiety last week?
Well, I think if there's one thing you can count on, it's continuity. He's certainly not from the opposition, certainly not as opposed as the candidate who came in second. So, and during the course of the campaign, you could see that many priorities that the outgoing administration espoused, he will also seek to continue. Particular note is infrastructure. He will push that. He's spoken about that in numerous interviews. Tourism, unfortunately, that was derailed by COVID. But if it's possible, he'd like to push that. There'll be an emphasis on agriculture and MSMEs. So I think he has pinpointed what he calls the highest ROI in terms of what will benefit or create the most good for the country for the least, for less effort, for the least effort possible.
Okay.
Alvin, Dan, Jesse is jumping in very quickly. I know you laid out here some of the programs that at least Marcos Jr. seems to be building up on from the previous administration. But how crucial is it as well for investors that he at least comes up as much as possible very quickly or very soon, a cabinet team? And how crucial is it, or at least is it something that you are looking forward to the possibility of him retaining some of the economic managers under the Duterte administration?
Okay, in an ideal world, we'd have the cabinet picks now. But I think, depending on your political persuasion, some say that, he's spending a lot of time discerning the right people for the job. I think I have to give it to him. I think he's probably thought about this a lot when he was campaigning. But now that he is the president-elect, that changes your perspective greatly. And I'm not privy to the exact workings in his mind, but if he was going to choose solely on the basis of those close to him, then the names would be out by now. But I think the fact that there's a little more time in discerning who are the best people for the job shows that he's not choosing on the basis of those who are close to him or who have helped him during this campaign, but who are the right people for the job. So you could choose to look at it from this perspective.
All right, now, Alvin, shifting the conversation a bit here, has the markets or investors somehow priced in the possibility of a rate hike on Thursday?
Yes. I think with inflation, on the upper band of expectations, and with U.S. More aggressive monetary policy, I think the market has anticipated this. So it's already been priced in.
Okay, Alvin, back to equities. No, we've had a deluge of first quarter earnings mixed with all of these election jitters as well. Now the latest, the TAN companies, Mega World, 30% increase in net income. You've also got Emperador, spending I think 3 billion pesos in capex, mostly overseas. So a lot of these announcements coming in on the back of first quarter earnings. What did that tell you? Was that better than expected? Does that paint a more optimistic picture? Because you did mention that there are a lot of fundamental issues that still need to be resolved.
Yeah, I think we're entering this crisis with some favorable momentum. Now, globally, things are challenging, as I talked about previously. But so there's nothing we can do about that. But at least domestically, many of our local companies are prepared for this challenge. No? So, we don't know how long they will last. The crisis will last. But at least, local players such as Emperador, as you mentioned, in Mega World, are quite prepared. So at least against this backdrop, there's room to be optimistic.
Okay, any intel on what's happening with the Dennis Uy stocks and why he seems to be putting these up for sale? Is that going to bode well for the performance of the stocks if new ownership comes into the foreplay?
I'd rather refrain from making political gossip. It's very hard to know his standing politically. But maybe having said that, I don't think his standing in this administration will be the same as in the prior. No? Mm-hmm. There's certainly a different dynamic there. Now, as to different investors entering, I think that's very possible. Recently, Enrique Razon bought his gaming assets. Mm-hmm. So you saw someone, with a longer track record entering this. So, that would be good for that particular stock. With regard to Dito Telecommunications, I'd like to note that that the provision in the Constitution restricting foreign ownership has been amended for that sector. So, I think the options available to capitalize that company have grown immensely.
Okay, very interesting one to watch then. Dito Telecom now down by 4%. And finally, Alvin, just a quick note on Vista REIT, which will be offering up to 3.33 billion shares. That's 2 pesos 50 centavos each. This is touted to be the main retail REIT, compared to the other commercial or office space REITs that we've seen in the market. How exciting is this? And of course, maybe refraining from political speak, but we do know that this is a Manny Villar company. Is this going to be, something that investors will be watching very closely?
Yeah, I think, I'd watch it for two reasons. First of all, it's a barometer on consumer spending. As a retail place, since there are much more retail assets here, it's a barometer on how consumption levels have changed since I mean as we approach what is it, the second to third year of the pandemic. Another angle I'm sort of curious, and I haven't seen it yet, is what's the impact of e-commerce. So as companies have shifted towards selling things online, I'm trying to figure out myself how much of consumer spending will be in traditional formats such as the malls of Vista versus something online with the popular names that we all know.
But the 2 pesos 50 centavos, what's your take on that? Is that well priced? Will that be discounted, especially with the situation?
I think the dividend yield is pretty much at market, if I remember right. So I think it's priced fairly. Of course, that's at current revenue now. So I'm more curious how things will look going forward.
Okay, very interesting one to watch then. Fairly priced, but again, look at the trends in terms of the retail space, whether people are going to be increasing that foot traffic. Thank you so much, Alvin Limlingan, Managing Director of Regina Capital.
Now, pausing for a quick break, but coming right up after that, the Philippines is one step closer to becoming a cash-light society as President Duterte orders government agencies to use digital payment systems.
More of that and other stories when Business World Live returns. Stay with us.
You're still watching Business World Live here on One News. I'm Jess De Los Santos.
And I'm Danny Laurel.
Research firm Nomura says that the Philippines is among economies exposed to a heightened risk of imported inflation due to its depreciating currency. In a note, Nomura points out that inflation is already above central bank targets in the Philippines and 3 other economies, that's India, Thailand, and South Korea. Nomura classified these countries as economies experiencing warm inflation. The firm adds that currency weakness could worsen imported inflation risk at a time of already elevated commodity prices and supply chain disruptions. The peso closed at 52 pesos and 49 centavos to the dollar on Monday, down by 2.9% from its level at the end of last year.
Now, President Duterte has signed into law a measure granting night shift differential pay to government employees, including those working in GOCCs. The law provides a rate not exceeding 20% of the hourly basic rate of an employee for each hour of work performed between 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. the next day. It covers government workers occupying position items from division chief and below, whether they are permanent, contractual, temporary, or casual employees. Government workers whose office hours are within 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. are excluded, along with government workers who are on call 24 hours daily, such as the military, police, firefighters, and other similar occupations.
Now here's another one from President Duterte. The chief executive has ordered all government agencies to use digital methods in disbursing and collecting payments. In Executive Order 170, the president said the move is in line with the government's effort to develop an inclusive digital financial ecosystem, which would make formal financial services accessible to more Filipinos. The EO covers the distribution of financial assistance, salary payments, allowances, and the collection of taxes, fees, tolls, and other charges. This order could bring the Philippines closer to becoming a cash-light society.
And now that the elections are over, local governments have started taking down campaign materials.
Now, to avoid these ending up in landfills, the city of Marikina decided to transform them into eco-blocks. Here's the story.
The election season in the Philippines, especially the campaign, can easily turn to something like a fiesta in different areas of the country. If campaign rallies have become concerts, millions of tarpaulins and posters distributed all over the country have become banderitas hung in almost every street and every corner. But after the elections, when the faces appearing in tarps, banners, and flyers have already been elected, where will these campaign materials go? In Marikina, collected campaign materials filled over 120 trucks over the span of 2 weeks. The good news is the city found ways to put to good use the mountain of tarpaulins.
Mga campaign materials na gawa sa plastic naman, dinadala namin siya dito sa waste plastic recycling facility ng SEMO.
After collecting the materials, attached wooden frames, staplers, and strings will be removed. Tarpaulins and posters will then go through the shredder and the pieces will be processed to create eco-friendly blocks.
Ito na po yung unang kalalabasan niya. Yan, ito. Medyo mainit pa siya.
Once the blocks are made, it will be used for local projects such as construction of classrooms and parks. The initiative is considered a good step in preserving the environment as the city avoided campaign materials and posters from being dumped in landfills.
Kung halimbawa itong mga poster, campaign materials na dala mo sa sanitary landfill, ay magkakaroon to ng emission.
Arian Kalumbiran, we are One News.
Oh, that's a good initiative. I mean, you have countless of waste here from the election season. I mean, some of them are turning it into eco-blocks here. Some are actually turning them into bags to be distributed to school children.
Okay, that's better. I thought you would be wearing the faces of
kids,
people
I mean,
in
these
their
are
bags.
good initiatives at least.
Tama.
I mean, you don't put to waste some of these tarpaulin materials. And I hope that becomes more of a habit every election season.
Exactly. Hindi lang sa Marikina, but of course, hopefully the whole country, ganyan din yung
Ideally,
initiative
of
nila,
course.
di ba? All right,
And that's
yes.
a first look into the business day this Tuesday, May 17, 2022. Join us again tomorrow at exactly 9:30 a.m. You can also catch us on Signal Play. Register for a free account now at www.signalplay.com And stream One News Live anytime, anywhere. I'm Jess De Los Santos.
And I'm Danny Laurel. Mask on, wash hands, stay safe, Philippines. We are One News.